When is collective action needed by beneficiaries? It seems like almost always. Under whatever schemes we are devising now at the center or the state level, it seems like sole beneficiaries cannot go single-handed and try to get anything done. It seems to require collective action. And when can it be expected? We have seen that, for example, in NREGS or even some cases of NBA, nobody really got together collectively, right? But when they are pushed to a corner, or when the perception of injustice crosses a threshold, this was the case with canal irrigation, where other distributaries were getting water but they were not. Now if no distributary had got water, they might have kept quiet. But when you see patent injustice, and it's little more than you can take, then I think you can expect this kind of thing. The reasons why it does not happen in some cases, one is of course schemes rooted through the Gram Panchayat, for example. Gram Panchayat doesn't handle just development schemes. It handles all kinds of things. If you want a caste certificate, you want an income certificate, you want your electricity connection, you want something else, you have to keep going back to those officials, right? So if you create a ruckus and you create trouble, even if you act collectively, in fact, that was the problem with this rural water supply. They got together, they acted collectively, and they had a dharna, and after that the PDO refused to do anything for anybody from that village going there, saying, you know, you have acted wrongly or whatever. So one is of course they stall and they non-cooperate. You know, you just make life more difficult for these people. But it's also, and this my colleagues who were writing these stories repeatedly pointed out, is the perception of what is a good life has changed quite a lot over the last 2 decades. And if you look at their world, I'm just calling it our world now, in these villages, there is of course a big place for God, right? At the start of any kind of undertaking, whether you're digging a bore well, you're ploughing your field for the first time this year, doing anything of that sort, you do a puja, you remember the gods and so on and so forth. And the notion behind it is, well, if I'm doing so much for the gods, right, won't they smile on us? You know, we're doing so much for them. Then on one hand, there is this whole issue of loans. Now people are recklessly taking loans, right, for what they perceive as the good life. A TV, a motorbike, the latest cell phone, these are all musts almost. And children, even people who cannot afford, would like to send their children to convent schools. They want English education, even if it's a pathetic school in a local town which, you know, nobody cares for. And of course celebrations. They have to make grand celebrations and spend it. So for all this they're willing to, they do take loans. They do take loans for drilling borewells also, yes they do. But their assumption in all this is that they can pay back the interest. They're not worried about the principal. They say, well, we have areca nut, we have coconut, we'll sell so much and we'll make so much this year, so I can pay the interest and I'm not going to worry about it. So where in all this does the government schemes fit in, right? To be frank, they are heavily dependent on them. Various schemes, right, from water, electricity, housing, and so on and so forth. But they take very little interest in them. I think they are very distracted by all these other things that they are doing, and somehow it doesn't seem to matter so much for them. Even in that case when canal irrigation where 200 people got together, it was a 15-day drama, and by the end of the drama there were half a dozen people who were trying to still keep it going, you know, acting. So this, they're not somehow taking enough interest, and that's possibly because their perception of the good life is very different. They are distracted by all this, and I think that has to do with the image that they are constantly receiving through TV, through media, through people who come from the cities and so on. I think it's really, a culture has changed in just 2 decades, because 2 decades ago people were much more careful about taking loans and so on. So if you ask them, look, there's a prolonged drought. This is the 3rd year we are into a drought, right? And you know, we had very poor rains this year also. And there are mounting costs, because you're paying for your cable TV, you're paying for your, you know, maintaining your motorbike, you're paying for your borewells, you're paying for your celebrations. What about the future? What are you thinking about? They say, look, don't worry. The God who is looking out for us, He will look out for us all, right? And this was, I mean, this is not something I'm making up. This is the story that the story writers insisted that this is how it is. and they feel it's all very obvious. I thought it wasn't. I think we're not, in many of our debates and talks, we don't take this into consideration, that their mindset has probably changed in very drastic ways.
In Andhra Pradesh, all distress agriculture, and we know that farmers are pushing themselves, and there is no way out for them. But here, at least, people are they think that they have a solution. That is their belief, at least. But coming back to this, I would like you to, while you mentioned at the end of the session, this is how they concluded. But there seemed to be a lot of research, that they got to know about various guidelines or systems. How did they realize them while they are writing these stories? Maybe that part you could explain a little more.
Well, actually, the feeling I got was they don't know much of the guidelines or the details. It's when I was trying to contextualize it and say that, well, under the NBS scheme, all this is allowed or all this. They were actually not even interested in the guidelines because they know that it has no relation to reality. So this is just additional things I added on to our report, saying this is how the scheme was supposed to run, this is what was supposed to happen.
And similarly, typically I was thinking that there are issues like government doing something and outsider facilitator and villagers, and then the collective action. All these phrases, their own discoveries, or unless we come together, it happens, or it doesn't happen. How did that happen?
No, actually, most of the analysis here is my own. I'm just trying to make sense of all these stories, trying to give it some kind of continuity, because they are all different sectors. The stories are a little disparate, and I had some reviewers finding that it's very difficult reading also. So I was just trying to analyze the whole thing from some point of view.
So if you were to put it back, saying this is where we as villagers have found this can happen here, this cannot happen here, this is where we need an outsider, etc. So maybe have you had the opportunity to share it with them, or have essentially, if not, how has their perception of the story changed over a period of time, right from the start to now and maybe beyond?
I think they still have some doubts about what this is all being written for, and I realized that they are now appreciating it a little more, because we have been saying for a long time, for about 10 years now, that don't use groundwater excessively like this, you'll run out. But we were talking prematurely. It happened 10 years later, and for us it's such an obvious thing. When water is being extracted at these rates, you're just running out of capital. Now, it was very difficult for them in those days to even accept what they're saying, because they were convinced, many of them still are, that there is a sea underground, and that sea of water will take them through. It's just that they need to be lucky. They need to do all the right pujas. They need to do all the... This is still a perception. I was just sharing with Shambhu that over the last 1 year, a very desperate year, after a year of drought, this particular village has spent 1 crore on digging new borewells, right? And possibly 75 lakhs of it was borrowed from various, sources. Perhaps 25 lakhs was people's own company. Half of them have failed. But I haven't gone back and talked to them about this kind of analysis. My own feeling is they wouldn't be interested. They would say, so what?
I don't know whether you need to do it directly, but I'm just thinking, this potentially perhaps is not very different from certain other situations. Some of these areas where cotton is supposed to give the same kind of returns, people over-invest. But if you were to say discuss not this, has there been any conversation around farmer suicide or the agrarian crisis that you had? What is their perception and understanding of that?
So that's where they explained. We kept coming back, but what about the crisis and what about the crisis? And at one point he told me, you're the only one who is interested in a crisis. Nobody else is bothered about it. But their point is really this, that they can pay back the interest on the loans they're taking. So it is not a serious issue. There have not been any farmer suicides in this area yet. It is a dry land area where things are looking bad. I think if this year is another drought year, things could look very different. Right? People might come back to NRE.
Yeah, correct.
I do want to add that thing about what do people actually feel about the crisis. Yesterday I was in Illantakunta in Karimnagar. people are seeing money flow to their hands like never before. So, and they say it. They can perceive the difference between what it was like 10, 15 years ago and now. In this area, there's at least some 15 families who've gone to the Gulf, grazing camels there. That's what they do. And, getting 30,000 rupees a month converted from, dirhams or whatever to Indian rupees. NREGS funds flowing. There are places where NREGS is working and it's adding to people's purses quite a bit. In terms of schemes, there's a deluge of schemes out there, like never before, I would say. And people are able to see this. So there's a sense of things actually being better at this point of time. And this whole business about having bought into the regular GDP growth model of development, all the things that you have mentioned there, for instance, in the last slide, are about adding to the GDP kind of activities.
Expenditure based.
Yeah, it's not around savings, it's not around long-term investments and so on. So this feeling is very much there, that if I can pay my interest off at this point of time, which I can, I'll borrow from here, I'll pay it there, if nothing else, even if I don't earn. There's a sense of well-being certainly there. There is a mismatch between, the crisis that the intellectuals and the activists talk about the agrarian crisis, and what people are actually going through. Even in, villages in Yavatmal, where that in this very village, 1 month ago, there's been a suicide. That family is suffering, but the general sense is that we're better off now than ever before. That's our reality. When was a villager ever this credit worthy? When were there ever so many schemes where I found in this village in Yavatmal, I was just telling Chitra that in the past 6 years or so, the land ownership of women, Asha, has gone up to 33%, the magical figure, women's land ownership. And why has it happened? Men are happily parting with their land parcels and registering it in their wives' names, essentially because that's the way you can access schemes meant for marginal farmers and small farmers. There are more and more schemes that are saying that these are for SMF, small and marginal farmers. So to access schemes, what women's movement has been asking for decades, for empowerment of women, which has never happened, so easily it's just happening. I went to a village called Tivsala in Yavatmal recently, where the land ownership shot up to something like 23%.
And they are getting schemes also.
And that's allowing women to borrow, men to borrow, within the same family, 2 people borrowing. There are more and more people who are not doing just cash management of incomes or whatever, little, because in agriculture, as soon as money comes in, you're paying off various large debts first. Very little actually stays with you it's a debt economy more than an income economy. But I have come across people who are more and more maintaining bank accounts to manage their monies in rural India. Not just because an NREGS required them to have a post office account or a bank account. But that doesn't mean that there's greater riskiness, that people are living on the edge, there is desperation, that there are suicides. All of that is also the contradictory reality. We can't wish that they may.
When you are talking about cash flowing in, one of the direct results when farming has received so many of these schemes and money is that I feel it has hit the traditional industry in a very bad way. Because weavers always, when we talk, they talk about just look at the farmers and what are all the things they receive. And when we are tied to our loom, we look so poor. Actually, they look poor because they don't have so many schemes. It's not about poor in the economic sense. We look so poor and we look so socially low class, which is why there are weavers who are now today willing to leave the loom. But Because I agree with you, the last slide I think was extremely interesting and perceptive. Because the perceptions which have changed. Earlier, 10 years ago when we were in the field, everybody said the weavers are there with the stigma to leave their village in search of work. You can leave the village for something else. But for work, if you leave, it's a stigma. In 10 years, it's no longer so. And you are leaving for what? You go as casual labor, you live in slums, you leave your own home, the security of your own home, they are quite unhappy. But once the stigma is gone, you can go. So I agree with you, things have changed. But how much is everything contributing to the killing of the voluntary initiative is what's going on?
And really the key point that I would like some more light on is you always have one or two here who are thinking a little more sensibly and doing something a little bit. On one hand, they are looked at derisively by the community as losers, as people who have just lost out on everything, can't take risks and all that. On one hand, they're facing that. On the other hand, is there any way in which these schemes can be designed that that odd person who is really interested and
Can take some lead.
can take some lead? Can we somehow design these schemes that those numbers can increase? Because right now they're really at the receiving end.